Hello, and welcome to the Catalyst Creator Show. I'm your host, Dave Yeager. Hey, I created this show for those that are interested in personal transformation, growth, and expansion in all areas of their lives. This show is created based on my own curiosity of asking questions and finding those that are the top professionals in their field, whether it be spirituality, professionally, personally, health and wellness, nutrition, and everything in between. My role is to find those that are the best and the world class in their respective fields, to interview them, ask them questions, find out what makes them the best in their area, and bring those words of information and wisdom to you so that you may apply them to your life and see measurable results. Hey, join with me on this insightful journey of self-discovery and inspiring messages. My question to you is, will you be the next catalyst for change in our world? Well, welcome to the Catalyst Creators Podcast Show number 2. I'm very excited to have a guest here with us today. She is she's very well respected in her field, and I'll give you a little bit of background on who she is. And essentially, Karen is a master financial coach, public speaker, entrepreneur, and author who has coached people with a variety of money issues, from just $500 in debt to over $800,000 in debt. She has coached folks with up to an 86 credit score, or 86 credit cards, excuse me, maybe an 86 credit score too. Never know. Let's see, and she's taught them how to pay down and pay off those credit cards in record time. Karen's mission is to inspire others to rid themselves of debt and build wealth. She encourages others to break the shackles of debt and give valuable insight into building wealth so that they can experience financial freedom. Karen Ford's #1 Amazon best-selling book, Money Matters, is a discovery for many. The book is not only motivational but practical. She is an avid real estate investor who enjoys buying, selling, and flipping properties. She has even bought properties for as little as $10, which I'm very interested in hearing that story. And let's see,
That's a fun one.
Cool. Well, we'll have to get into it here. And turn a few dollars into thousands. In Money Matters, she provides keys to demolishing debt, shares how to budget correctly, and gives principles to wealth building. Karen Ford, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I so greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm very excited to have you here today. And I feel like a lot of this information that we're going to talk about today is very relevant to our day and age. I feel like not only myself, but a lot of folks struggle with debt, and especially in a society where everything is very much debt based. So I'm very curious to speak with you and ask you some questions. And again, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Very good. So let's start off with this, just so the audience has somewhat of a background on yourself. Can you share a little bit about how you got started in your current work and any information that you find relevant with your background that's applicable?
Well, sure. Thanks for asking that. I'm actually a registered nurse. And several years ago, I had a friend of mine say, you know what, Karen, you're really good with money. I think you ought to go get some training on financial coaching and that kind of thing. So long story short, I went to a course and absolutely loved it. And so I look at it like this. As a nurse, I used to help people get healthy physically. And now as a master financial coach, I help people get healthy financially. So as far as my background goes, my background is in nursing, but I don't always remember this, to be honest with you, but people throughout my life have said, you're really good with money. You're really good with money. And to me, it was just a natural thing. So sometimes I think individuals have a natural ability or a natural gifting. So when someone says, well, you're really good at that, we don't see it that way because it came so natural to us, if I may say that. But I so enjoy helping people manage their money. And you would be surprised how many people ages 18 all the way up to 72 have said, no one ever taught me how to budget. And
Mm.
that's even a 72-year-old. They've never been taught. So there you
Wow.
have it.
Wow. I'm curious, what was the class that you attended?
It was a financial course with Dave Ramsey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and so they do a lot of teaching and a lot of training with that, and so I've been doing that for a number of years now, and also have written a few books on the subject of money as well. So I
Very
just enjoy
interesting.
helping people.
Yeah, that's curious with your background in nursing. I find that very interesting. But yeah, the ability to transfer that wisdom and understanding over to a different aspect of you're helping people heal, really.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. So I'm curious, starting out in this field, what do you wish you would have known, beforehand, kind of starting out? If it was it were there challenges that you faced with that, or was it you mentioned it kind of came easily to you in a lot of ways? So,
Yeah. It did come easily. The challenging part was sometimes you would coach couples, married couples,
mm,
and of course, opposites attract. So sometimes there's one mate, that really wants to grab a hold and do what you're saying, and opposites attract. So therefore, who they're married to doesn't really want to jump on board. And that can be very challenging to motivate people to do what you're asking them to do. Now, mind you, they pay me for this coaching.
sure,
So they know beforehand that when they come to see me, I'm going to tell them some things that, I am suggesting they do so they can take better control of their money. Ultimately, they have the ultimate decision as to whether they're going to do it. And it can be somewhat disheartening when, you tell them this is what you can do and this is when you can be out of debt. And one mate will say, well, I don't want to do that because I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing now to make the necessary sacrifice to be out of debt in 5 years or 10 years or however long it is. And that can be very discouraging, not only for me, but for their spouse who is ready to jump on board. So,
mm,
yeah, I would say that would be one of the biggest challenges is having one mate wanting to do it and the other not.
yeah, I could see that for sure. Because yeah, if one person's not on board with it and you're in a union, it's not going to really work that well.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
interesting. So with that challenge, what would you find that worked overcoming that? Like helping, say the one mate's on board with, yes, I want to get through this and I don't want to struggle with this anymore, and the other one's kind of resistive. What are some of the techniques that you use to kind of help them move through that?
Well, I'll just ask them, what is it that you are willing to do? Because there's no there's no reason for me to tell you what I'm recommending unless you're going to tell me what you're willing to do. In
Mm,
other words, I coached somebody one time and they drove through a specialty coffee shop every morning on their way to work to get a special coffee. And so they were spending anywhere between $3.50 all the way up to $5 or $6 a day. When it was all said and done, they were spending about $400 a month on a cup of coffee on their way to work. And so when we calculated that, I said,
mm,
are you willing to change that up a little bit? And of course, they said yes. So I think one of the strategies is if I make a recommendation and they say, well, I don't really want to do that, then I show them the numbers. Did you realize that you're spending $400 a month on that cup of coffee on your way to work? And of course, many times they have a deer in the headlight moment, for lack of words. They're shocked. And of course, most generally, they're going to say yes. And I'll say, what would you be willing to do? Would you be willing to just go through that drive through maybe every Friday as a special end of the work week day to treat yourself instead of getting it every day?
mm.
And so I think one of the strategies is show people the money, pretty much. Show people. Instead of me saying, hey, instead of eating out 10 times a month, do you think maybe you might consider that twice a month? Well, sometimes people say yes. But when I show them the numbers, this is how much you're spending every month on restaurants. Would you like to change that?
Mm.
So when they see how much they can save and put it towards investing or paying a bill, or what have you, when you show them the numbers, most of the time that's going to cause them to change. They'll be motivated to change.
Yeah, I that's interesting you said that because I was pervasively going to Starbucks every day when I worked in my past career, and
Yeah.
you don't think about it because it's like, oh, today I made X amount of dollars, and it's only a couple bucks, but my goodness, you start adding that up, and I was like, wow, I think I was spending like almost $500 a month, and I was like,
Isn't that
it
crazy?
is crazy, and that's
It's
just
crazy.
coffee. That's just coffee.
Right. Right. Well, and the thing of it is, it's usually the little foxes that spoil the vine. Now, granted, if somebody buys a, a tanked out truck, and their truck payment is $700 a month and their rent is $500 a month, there's something messed up there. But, big purchases can get you, but more times than not, it's the little things that add up.
Mhm.
$5 here, $10 there, stopping at a convenience store to pick up, you know, a bottle of pop and a candy bar or whatever it is. Convenience costs. And that's what I tell people when they say they stop at, this convenience store or what have you. I'll say, convenience costs.
Mhm.
You're paying for it. So,
That's good. That's good to know. Yeah, I think a lot of people just kind of forget about that, but um, yeah, I mean, I've been definitely guilty of that myself and looking at just the budget of holy cow. So now I'll go. It's hard because like I work out of coffee shops all the
oh,
time, so it's kind of
yeah,
like, well, it's my office, so I justify it as my
right,
office expense. But I stick with the bare minimum of like, can I just get a cup of coffee and it's like $1.50? Okay, that's better than spending $3 and
right,
but yeah, you're right. It is a little expensive. They say what
right.
small leaks sink big ships. Same thing.
That's right. That's
So,
right. That's so
uh,
true.
so what have looking at the past and things that you've gone through in your experiences and what's kind of brought you up to this point in your life today, what are some of the things that maybe you failed at that you've learned about and learned from and then kind of incorporated that with your life moving forward?
As far as coaching goes, I won't say that any of my coaching experiences were a failure. I would say that I would probably change up some things uh, on the personal coaching aspect because every individual is different. So, knowing who it is that you're speaking with when you're coaching, it's not a cookie cutter coaching, I guess is my point. It's not cookie cutter coaching, and anybody that would try to do that, you're going to fail.
Mm,
So, knowing the personality of the person you're coaching, identifying where they are, what they're willing to do, what they're not willing to do. In the early days, my first couple of coaching experiences, I would just tell people, this is what you need to do. And I was very matter of fact, poignant, so to speak. And not everybody can take that.
sure,
So,
sure.
trying to understand what are your goals, getting them to talk, finding out what are your goals. Where do you want to see yourself 30 years from now financially, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 5 years from now? And if they can identify and tell me what their financial goals are, what's your dreams, what's your visions? Do you want to be a world traveler? What do you want to do? Then what I can do is more times than not, they don't know how to get there. So I provide a roadmap. Okay, people want to go to Disney World. Well, how are you going to get there? You have to have a roadmap. Google something to tell
Yeah.
you turn right here, turn left there. So if I can if I can provide them with a roadmap, this is some suggestions. It could take you, 5 days to get to Disney, or you can get there in a 13-hour drive. Which do you prefer? So when we look at it like that, I can say, we can reach these goals by this date or this date. Which do you prefer? Then I'm going to give them the necessary steps. Now, certainly there's going to be some sacrifices involved on their part, but it's going to be well worth it. So it depends on how aggressive or assertive they want to be in reaching those goals. You want to reach it in 2 years, or do you want to take 10? So if
Mm.
they say, well, no, I want to reach it in the quickest amount of time, then you got to know that you got to buckle down and do what you need to do to get there. Yeah.
Do you find it's challenging for folks to really see that future of say 5, 10 years out? versus like the immediate today of like, okay, today I've got to make a good decision, and tomorrow I've got to make a good decision, and the day after that I got to make a good decision. Do you see folks like really kind of struggle with that, like
Yeah.
long-term vision?
Oh, absolutely. Sometimes people will have a vision, but they have no idea how to get there. And the other thing is, we live in a culture and a society today where not everyone is like this. Let me just say that right now. Not everyone is like this. But I have found that a lot of people have the attitude, well, the government will take care of me. No, the government will not take care of you. And actually, that is not the government's responsibility. You're here on this earth, you're able bodied, you're able to work. So what can you do? I've talked with so many people that have a job and they don't even know that their employer provides, a 401k plan, some type of retirement plan, or they know that their employer offers a retirement plan, but they're not taking advantage of it. And so I'll say, well, why would you not want to do that? If they're going to match you, and what I mean by that is some employers will say, if you put 3% or 4% in this retirement plan, we will match you up to 3%. Well, whatever the match is, that's free money. Why would you not want to take advantage of that? Plus, it better prepares you for retirement in the event that you want to someday retire instead of working until you're 70 or 80 years old. So we have to plan for the future. And so I would say that that is accurate when you said that. It's easier for people to say, yeah, I need to make good plans for today, but they're not looking at 20 or 30 years from now. And here's the point. Our decisions today are going to result in our tomorrows. So if we're not making good, stable financial decisions today, what's that going to look like for our tomorrow, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the road? So we have to prepare well now, make good decisions today.
Yeah, very well stated. I feel like a lot of folks don't. Part of it, I feel like it's part of the education system that we weren't raised or educated in the fact of budgeting, money matters. I mean, growing up in my household, my dad was, he was a well paid engineer at his company, and was very successful in that. And he himself was good at finances and budgeting and knowing how to take care of the family.
Right.
But it's weird. The conversations around the dinner table were more fear based in the sense of doom and gloom. The government's going to come get us, and all these weird situations. And it was never like it was almost uh, it was almost to the point where it was like, you just should know it because I know it.
Right.
And unfortunately, I being the youngest in the family kind of got the brunt of that, and I feel like it's there's other factors in there as well, but I've been challenged in my adult life throughout my career and different places I've gone because of limitations of like, well, why isn't this working? Because I'm good at making money, but at the same time, I never seem to have anything left at the end of the day.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So, do you see beliefs playing a lot into that as well?
Beliefs? Oh, absolutely. I think the way people are raised, they already have a belief system in their family, right? So if you're raised by parents that always feel like there's never enough, never enough, never enough, there's always something breaking down, we never have enough money, then you're raised in that atmosphere, you're raised in that environment. So therefore, what are you going to be thinking when you enter the workforce or go out on your own? You're automatically kind of programmed, so to speak, to think there's never going to be enough. There's never going to be enough. Or if you're wealthy, you already have a mindset, hey, I can do this. I can make it. So a lot of it has to do with our thought processes. Now, that doesn't mean that if you were raised in a home where there was never enough, that you can't break that cycle. Because if you believe in yourself and you believe in what you're doing, and you put yourself out there, whatever it is, you're doing the best thing that you can on your job, or maybe you're self-employed, you're going to grow your business, whatever that looks like, you have to believe that you can achieve. And that's a bomb right there. You have to believe that you can achieve, because our actions follow our beliefs. What we do, how we act, is a result of what we believe. So if I were a person that thought, well, I'll never make it, then that's exactly what my action is going to be. Well, I just give up. I'm never going to make it. But if I change my thought process and say, hey, been given an opportunity that other people have given, I'm going to make the most of it, and I can do this, and set goals. I'm going to get raises. I'm going to get bonuses. I'm going to, don't live a mundane life. Be the best you that you can be and believe that you can achieve, because why would you not believe in yourself? You're the only you there is. There's not another you on the face of this planet. You are unique, you're an individual, and you're made the way you're made. So if we've been wired in our thinking, I can't do it, we have to change that. We have to change it up. And we almost have to do self-talk. I can do this. I can do anything that I set my mind to. And we have to believe, and self-motivational things, watching YouTube, listening to motivational speakers. Lisa Nicholson is a phenomenal speaker. There's lots of them out there. John Maxwell, he is the creme de la creme in leadership. So believing that we can do it. Will we fail sometimes? Yes. But I like what John Maxwell says, fail forward. Fail
Yes.
forward. Because anytime we fail or we get a hiccup in our stepping, hey, we just learned something. We'll not do that again. So we're always on a learning curve. If we make a mistake, okay, pick yourself up, brush the dust off, and move on. Don't sink so low where you're thinking, well, I'm never going to do that. Never, ever am I going to step out again. No, don't shortchange yourself. That was just a little thing that happened. Move on and get over it and go for it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, failing forward, and that brought something to mind when I first started in my sales career. I was my manager at the time was always telling me, he's like, it's like dirty water in, dirty water out. So he's like, if you're focusing on negative news and
Yeah.
things around you, your environment dictates a lot of how you think and how you act. So he's like, yeah, start listening to the audiobooks from successful people that you want to admire, and listen to good YouTube videos, listen to TED Talks. And
That's
it
right.
it really did. I mean, it was amazing how much my mind shifted, which kind of got me in the whole personal development arena. And now, obviously, I'm kind of transitioning now into podcasting, because I feel like it's good to bring more. I think people are really, really craving information and wisdom from folks that have been down the road, and to get it to the larger people. So
That's
that's
right.
it's really good.
Yes.
So what is the code that you live your life by? And by that I mean, what is your value and moral system that has really crafted your life and everything that kind of revolves around that? I'm curious about that.
Well, being completely truthful and honest with other people and truthful and honest with myself. I think that is huge right there. So many times people want to paint a facade to other people of who they're not. And with me, you see, this is what you get. So, being truthful and honest with myself, you know, years ago, I was a chameleon, and I tried to change according to the environment or the person, the people I was around. And, that's so tiring, and it's so performance based. Be who you are, being honest with yourself, being honest with others, being truthful with yourself, and being truthful with others. Yeah, I would say that would absolutely be a moral code.
I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah, how many of us walk around with a mask? Everything's a masquerade, it's just, I think it's hard for folks to see or be honest or be authentic. That's
right,
something that's really lacking in our society. There's
right.
a lot of challenges in our society.
That's so very true. There really are a lot of challenges.
Um,
Yeah,
I think that's something that I've been working on more and more in the last year, is just is being real with folks. It's like I've always
right,
been, I feel like I've been honest, but then things have happened, and so I got to backtrack, and then I don't want people to know certain things about your life. So it's like, but it gets so tiring. It's just kind of like, just accept me for who I am. And then
right.
I think actually what's weird is people start to trust and see you differently if you treat yourself with that honesty and that respect and being authentic, uh,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Plays out.
Yes. Yes, it does.
So let's get into this a little bit more. You've talked a little bit about it so far, but what was the point in your life where you really decided to, you mentioned you were in nursing, and
Yeah.
what kind of walk me through that period of time when you were like, you know what, I'm more interested and I'm good with money, and then it caused you kind of transition to writing a book and all that,
Right.
and the investment part. I want to get into your investment,
Oh, I
ten
could talk
dollar.
your ear off on investment.
Well, see,
But
I'm a old real estate agent. I still have my
uh-huh.
license, so
Okay. Oh, there you go. Okay. Well, as far as financial coaching, the medical field, and the medical field is wonderful. If we didn't have the medical field, a lot of people wouldn't be around, just to be
true.
honest with you. So medicine, and the medical field, it's wonderful. But over the years, things have changed up. The hospital where I had been working, we used to write out all of our notes and do a lot of documentation, handwritten, and a little bit on the computer. But they were transitioning to everything computer. Now, I'm not saying I'm not computer illiterate and that I couldn't learn, but what I'm saying is I found that it actually took a lot more time to do all of this documentation for the patient that you're supposed to be taking care of, and
Mhm.
there was less time for patient care. Now, that's me. I'm not saying that's the case with everyone in the medical field, but I thought, you know what? I don't like the fact that I don't get to spend as much time providing the care for my patients than I am documenting the care. So it was actually probably a little easy for me to transition over into the financial coaching aspect. I enjoyed it. I loved it. It was a little bit scary because, as a nurse, you get X amount of money every hour. And with financial coaching, you do charge for your coaching, but it's not like you're coaching somebody 8 to 10 hours a day. So it was a little bit different in that aspect, but I so love it. I've helped so many people, and this isn't to toot my own horn, but I've helped people ranging from 18 years of age up to 72. And it's kind of sad, but it's kind of exciting at the same time because I'm teaching people something that they hadn't learned before.
Mhm.
Now, for an 18-year-old, that's phenomenal because they can really set their life right financially. It's kind of sad for a 72-year-old because how much longer are they going to be here?
Right.
See? So it's good that they're getting the information, better late than never, but at the same time, how many years were robbed of them when they could have been winning financially, but they didn't know. So I would say that that's how I transitioned into the master financial coaching and helping people. And I just absolutely love it. Yeah. And then helping people make money. That's always a good thing too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it gives you inspiration. It's kind of like if you're always getting beat down and you can't figure out, how to make the next buck or where it's coming in, but then
Right.
and the debt is swallowing you up. I mean, let's face it, interest on credit cards and car payments,
Right.
everything in between, it chews you up. So
Right.
it's very defeating. So if you can figure out, like you were mentioning, that building that roadmap is key, and sticking to it. Your
That's
actions
right.
dictate your future. So
That's right. Yes. That's so true.
now, when did you write your book?
I wrote my first book probably, let's see here, this is 2019, 2017.
Okay.
The first book was a 31-day devotional. It's called 31 Days to a Greater Understanding of Money. Obviously, that was my first book. That's a very long title. The second book is Money Matters. And that's a play on words because money does matter. I've never had anyone tell me, Karen, I don't need any more money. I've
Right.
never had anybody say, Karen, I don't want any more money. So money does matter. But then we also discuss money matters, meaning what are the matters surrounding money that we need to know about? Debt, credit cards, investments, how to demolish debt. You know, what do we do when we seemingly have more debt than income? So all of those Money Matters.
Mm.
And then the third book I wrote is called Money Nuggets. That is a book that has various quotes surrounding money, and it's just like a little gift book. And then the fourth book, which I'm absolutely, positively excited about, is called You Can Do It: Real Estate Investing Made Simple.
Oh,
And that has to do with flipping, buying foreclosures, buying properties through auction, buying properties through the state auditor auction for pennies on the dollar because people didn't pay their taxes. So there's a wide array of information in that book, rentals, you know, and then how do you decide how much you're going to buy the house for if you plan on flipping it? How do
mm.
you determine if this house is a potential flip? So looking at all of those aspects, that book is jam-packed. So
Okay, so now let's segue into this because I'm curious. I'm sure the audience is as well.
oh goody.
Your $10 real estate investment. Let's talk about that.
Okay, let me give you the skinny on that. Several years ago, I discovered that every state has what they call as a state auditor office. And the state auditor office acquires properties in every county in that state where people have not paid their taxes on it. So therefore, the owner technically doesn't own it any longer. The state auditor office has acquired it. Now, that doesn't mean that people are bad. Maybe the person passed away and the heirs didn't know, or maybe they didn't have any heirs, or somebody fell down hard financially and just left the state and just let that property go. So I'm not saying that that is the case with all people. Oh, they're bad people because they didn't pay their taxes. It depends on the situation.
Sure.
So every year, the state auditor office places, now I'm in West Virginia, so it may be a little bit different in your state in which you're living. And you would just have to Google the state auditor office and call them and find out what their steps are. But here in this state, they place on their website the counties in which they're going to have the auction and the dates. And about 30 days before that auction, they will put on their website all of the properties that are going to be auctioned. The person's name that had owned it, the tax map, the plat, the parcel number, all of that. So you can do your due diligence and discover where is this property, because it doesn't have a street name all the time. It just may have the tax map, page number, parcel number, etc. And so my business partner and I, he'll be on the computer, he'll find all of the properties, he'll make a list, and then we pick 2 or 3 days where we will go to each of these properties to see where they are. What condition are they in? Is the roof caving in or is it intact? Are all the windows busted out or are they intact? What's the foundation look like? Now, granted, you can't step foot on the property or go inside, but you can tell a lot from the exterior. And then we'll make notes and we'll decide, yeah, let's bid on this one. And so when the auction occurs, we start bidding and we win some, we lose some.
Sure.
Sometimes we're outbid. Now, I preface all of that information with this. Several years ago, you asked me about my property for $10. I was so excited. I got the list of properties. I did some due diligence on where some of these were. But this particular property, I was really itching. When you have that number in your hand, you just want to bid on something.
Sure.
And that's what happened with me. I kind of knew where this property was, the area in which it was. And I thought, well, I can find out later where it is, So I bid, and they started the bidding at $10. Nobody bid against me. And I got it. I thought, okay, great. So, you get the attorney, they do the title deed search, and then you pay. And then you pay for the notice to redeem, because the previous owner, even if they're around or not around, will have an opportunity to redeem the property. But that means they'd have to pay back all those taxes, etc.
Okay.
Well, I did that, and then I paid for the deed filing. When it was all said and done, paying the attorney, paying for the property, paying for the deed filing, etc., I had $500 in property. Okay. So I thought, okay, well, I have the deed now. I guess I need to go find out where it is. So, day of discovery. And I'm telling you this story to tell on myself and also for the listeners to know don't do this. Always check to see where the properties are. This was a trailer that had a padlock on it and a big sign on it that says "Do not enter." This was a meth house.
Oh
So
no.
I thought, okay, what am I going to do with you? Because nobody can live in it because it costs thousands of dollars. Meth gets in everything. I didn't want to do anything with the trailer, and I thought, well, it's on this lot. So whoever buys it could remove the trailer and they can put their own trailer or house on this lot. So that's exactly what I did. I took pictures, I put the text, map, I put the page number, the deed book, all of that, and I put on the yard sale sites on Facebook, and I said, this trailer is uninhabitable. It was a meth house. You will have to remove this trailer, but you'll have the lot. And so, long story short, I sold it for $1,400.
Nice.
Yeah, so I still made money, but I said all that to say this: make sure you go and see where these properties are. So
Good learning experience.
it's a very good learning experience. And, we picked up properties. Like I said, not all properties will sell for $10. They'll start out maybe at that price. But we bought a property for $2,000. We bought a lot next to it. When it was all said and done, and we had our handyman make a small repair to the roof, and clean out all the junk out of the house, because it's surprising. A lot of people leave and they just leave all their stuff in it. So
Yes.
when it was all said and done, we have $5,000 in the property, and it sold for $34,900. So we make some money on it. Obviously, we could sell the house for $80,000, but we're not going to do that because we want to sell it quick. Number
Sure.
one, we want to make a quick profit. Plus, it gives other people an opportunity to buy a house for not a lot of money, and then they can fix it up. And other properties we flipped ourselves. So it just depends. Some we flip, some we just sell for someone else to flip or someone else to fix up and live in it. So, yeah, and that is a lot of fun.
How long have you been doing this?
5 years.
5 years.
5 years. Yeah. And it works out really well for us because we're the bank. So if people don't pay cash, if it's $7,500 or less, we want cash.
Okay.
If it's more than that, we'll do 3,000 down or 4,000 down, and then monthly payments. So we're the bank, and it's not a rent to own situation because we have a deed of trust drawn up, so that if we have to foreclose, we will, but we don't want to have to do that. So we have a deed of trust because it protects us. So if they miss, 2 or 3 months of payments, we're going to foreclose on them just like a bank would and take
Right.
the property back. But the other part of that is if they put 3 or 4,000 down and then they started fixing it up, they're not going to want to lose that investment. So that's why we ask for 3 or 4,000 down, because if you only do 1,000 down or something like that, that might not be such a big deal for the person. But if you do 3 or 4,000 down, they're not going to want to lose that.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. What
Mm-hmm.
what generally the range is for his interest rate on a because you're kind of doing almost like an owner carry, right?
Right. We do 5%.
5%. Okay. Hi,
5%.
that's very
Yeah.
competitive, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. 5%. It works out nice. So every month we have, and we always set it up not with a check. We tell them to set it up automatic. So an ACH deposit is transferred from their account to our business account, and they set that up. They know it's due the first of every month.
Okay.
So that way we don't have to chase them down. Not that rentals are not a good thing, but typically people that rent don't do that. You're waiting on a check. So this way, if it's automatic, then we're not having to chase people down. It's already set up.
I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, you got to protect yourself, especially when you're doing that.
Right. Yeah,
Being the
absolutely.
bank.
Right. We want to make sure that it's there. And plus, if we're waiting on a check, then we're kind of treating it like a rental type situation. And we don't want to do that because you're talking about more than 10 properties. You
Mm.
know, you don't want to chase people down. At least we don't want to chase people down. So we have them set it up. And that's actually in the contract when we sign it at the attorney, when we close, that they have to set that up. Yeah,
Who
automatic payment.
who kind of taught you the business?
Honestly, my oldest brother had done rentals for over 30 years. And so when we decided we were going to do this together, I had started at first, and then we decided, he talked to me about it, and he said, why don't you and I come up with a business too? So I actually have three businesses.
Wow.
So one, I do my own, and then he and I do one together. And so when he's done real estate a long time. So when he came up with the game plan of a deed of trust, I said, well, gosh, yeah, that's a lot better than, checking the mailbox every day to see if you got the mortgage payment from that person. If it's already set up for the first of each month, then you just go online and confirm that it's there. So it makes it a lot easier. Plus, it's a lot easier to track.
Mm.
And for our tax man, you
Yes.
know, it's really much easier to do it like that. Yeah.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
I've worked with investors. I've played around with it myself. I guess I don't know if it's ever. I always read a lot of the Robert Kiyosaki books
I
and some of
love
the.
Robert Kiyosaki.
Yeah,
Love,
he's
love, love
cool.
him. And he's straightforward. I mean, right? No holds barred, right? He,
Right.
he doesn't pull back on any punches. He just lets you have it, which is great. I like that because that's how my personality is.
Yeah.
So very straightforward. You don't have to guess what he's thinking. You
Yeah.
don't have to wonder.
Yeah. His early entry into real estate and his wife it's a pretty fascinating story.
It is.
What's his first book? I forget the name of it.
Um, oh gosh, he's written so many.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's the one
uh,
that basically talks about his early beginnings
yeah, it's
in
purple and
Hawaii.
black, right?
Yes. All
The cover is purple and black.
now I've got
Oh, that's terrible. I should know that off the
to.
top of my head.
No, no, you're good. You're good. Well, I'll look it up here while we're chatting.
Okay.
I'm curious with everything that you kind of got going forward. What are you most excited about in your personal professional life, or even curious about for that matter?
Oh gosh, I'm excited because I get to help people take control of their finances. A lot of people that I coach have no idea how to manage their money, therefore, their money is mismanaged, not managed. And, I teach them how to budget. And so many times people think the word budget is a four-letter word. They're like, and they think, they have this misconception that a budget takes hours and hours and hours to come up with, and that is not the case. You
Hmm.
pretty much know what your bills are every month. So it should take your budget maybe 10 minutes each month to set up a budget. And then if one particular month you have a wedding gift to buy, you put that in the budget for that month. So making it simple for people to grasp is very rewarding for me, because if I can get them to understand this is how you budget and you're taking control of your money, because simply put, a budget is telling your money what you want it to do instead of wondering where it went.
Hmm.
And people that I coach, if I say, how much money do you make? And they say, well, I make this amount of money every month, but I don't know what happens to it. 99.9% of the time is because they don't budget. Or we just got done with tax time, right?
Yep.
So people get their W-2s in the mail and they're like, man, I made all that money. What happened to all that money? Chances are you didn't budget. So a budget puts you in the driver's seat when it comes to money. A budget is you're telling your money what you want it to do. How many times have you checked your wallet and maybe on a Monday you have a $50 bill or whatever, and by Friday you have a couple of George Washingtons, and you're like, what happened to that money that was in my wallet? And you can't remember where you spent it. That's because people are not budgeting. They're not being purposeful with their money.
Hmm.
And I always tell people, when you spend cash. Any opportunity you can spend cash, do that instead of using a debit card. Why? Because Carnegie Mellon did a study several years ago, and they hooked up a person to an MRI machine, which studies the brain waves, and they simulated this person spending cash. Well, when they spent cash, it activated the pain centers of the brain.
Hmm.
When they spent with a debit card, it did not activate the pain centers of the brain. So, and also studies show that when you spend with a debit card, you spend 37% more money than you would if you spent cash. How many times you go into a convenience store and you just with that debit card, and then you discover the next day how much you spent with that debit card? Whereas if you have cash in your wallet, you're very mindful of how much you're spending. So it's actually, it might take you a little bit of time to pull out a $20 bill instead of with the debit card, but it'll save you a lot of money in the long run. When you go to a grocery store and you have a debit card, you might be mentally calculating how much you're spending, but by the time you get to the second or third row, that goes out the window. And you don't know how much you spent until you get to the register. But if you go to that grocery store with cash, you're going to know within just a few dollars before you get to that register how much you've spent, because you're going to be more mindful because you know this is all the cash I have in my wallet.
Hmm.
Yeah. So you asked me a question and I went around Robin Hood's barn. Personal
No.
finance. I like helping people take control of their money. And when it comes to real estate, I'm excited for real estate on all levels because real estate is a lucrative investment. Lucrative investment. You know, it might not be good maybe in the town that you're living in, but go to the next town over
Yeah.
because I'm telling you, real estate is lucrative. Whether you buy a property for it to become a rental, whether you buy a property just to buy it and resell it to make a profit and let somebody else flip, or buying a property and you flip it yourself, it's lucrative. It's a moneymaker.
I
Yeah,
like it. Yeah, I think I've struggled with trying to find, like, I've read all the books, I understand the market, I've obviously been a real estate agent myself.
sure.
Maybe it's just fear of pulling the trigger on something or finding, because I
Right.
know there's so many different avenues. I mean,
Oh,
you can do assignments, you can do, I mean, if you want to be the gopher and find the properties and sell the
right.
contracts. So there's a million ways to skin the cat. I think maybe
Sure.
in the past I've had too many irons in the fire, so it's kind of.
I understand.
But
You might
yeah,
consider doing the state auditor auction because
yeah,
you maybe have to spend as much money as you would if you bought a property outright. That might be something to consider.
yeah. Someone had told me in the past of looking at, yeah, the tax lien or the tax auctions, because and I remember looking through them like, wow, you could, like, it's crazy. Somebody walks away from, just
Yeah,
$500 to $1,000, and it's maybe a little known secret to a lot of folks. So,
right. Yeah,
huh.
I like it.
Yeah, that's cool. I had a question for you when you were talking
Okay.
there a minute ago. Anyways, I will say the book we were talking about was the Robert Kiyosaki, was Rich Dad Poor Dad.
That's it. That's it. Yep.
Yes, great book. I
Yes, it
remember I came across that book when, so after college, funny story, after college, I was working in Houston and went to school in Pensacola, and I really didn't like my job. So I would, but I was really efficient and good at it. So I would go, I worked on the refineries. So I would go out to the refineries, I pull all my oil samples, and then I would go down to the Barnes and Noble down in Clear Lake, I believe is where it was. And I just perused the investment section and I was like, wow, what is this book? Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And so I get a cup of coffee and I sit there and read it. So that was my afternoons while I was at work. So I really worked 4 hours and then went to Barnes and Noble, read for 4 hours, and then I came back to the office like, oh, I had a great day on the field. Maybe not the most ethical thing, but
The
but
book is good.
the book is
Yeah.
good. The book
Yes,
is
it
really good.
is.
And then I ended up
Yeah.
reading all the rest of them, and the ones he did with Trump were interesting too. So,
Yes, absolutely.
but all right. So looking at um, maybe let me ask you this. If you could give your 20 or 30-year-old self some advice, what would it
Oh,
be?
oh, I don't even have to think about that. I would have started in real estate investing in my 20s or 30s. I would have done it long ago.
Hmm.
Much, 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 much sooner. Yeah. Yes, indeed. Much, much sooner.
Yeah, it's one of those compounding things. The sooner you get into it, the better. Well, that's with any investment, right?
That's a true.
So
That's right. Yep. That's
saving
true.
money or budgeting or any of that stuff, that's the compound effect.
Yeah. That's so true.
Very
Yeah.
interesting. What is the one book or books that you've gifted the most and why?
I would have to say Money Matters. That is the book that I have gifted the most. And the reason is because that book is meaty. It actually gives the steps on budgeting, how to budget, why we budget, demolishing debt. There's a whole chapter on how to demolish debt.
Hmm.
There's also a chapter on investing, 401ks versus Roth IRAs. I also touched base on some real estate investing in that book as well. But that book is jam packed, very instructional, very informative. Anyone that wants to take control of their money in a greater way, that's the book. Money Matters. Yeah,
Excellent. I'll put that
yeah.
on my own list.
Okay.
One thing I remember the question I was going to ask you before is you mentioned obviously budgeting and whatnot. Take somebody who is working on commissions where very income is very variable,
Yeah.
business owner. How do you coach them through that? Saying, okay, obviously you have a not fixed income.
hmm
How do you work with somebody like that?
That's a very good question. When somebody is commission based pay, obviously their pay is not going to be the same every week or every 2 weeks. So, what we do is we start with okay, what's the most that you've ever made in a month? What was your best month? And then I say, what was your absolute worst month?
Hmm.
So, what we do is when we set up the budget, we want to set up the budget on the lowest pay that they had received. So, in other words, let's say that the lowest pay they ever received in a month was, say, $2,000. Okay. Then we're going to base our budget on that amount of pay so that anything above that amount of pay can go towards debt if they have debt. It could go towards an emergency fund if they don't already have an emergency fund, or it could go towards investment. So if you're commission based, you want to base the budget on the lowest amount that you've made.
Hmm.
And then anything that you make above that, let's say the month of July, you end up with a $6,000 month. Fantastic. You're still going to base your budget on that $2,000, but then now you're going to make some decisions. What am I going to do with the remaining $4,000? And that's a key right there. Any money that you have to budget every dollar that you make. You can't say, well, my income is $5,000. My bills are $4,000. $1,000 left over. The leftover you have to assign because if you don't assign that $1,000 a job, it will leave your hands and you won't know what happened to it. You have to put it somewhere. Are you going to put the $1,000 in an investment? Are you going to put that $1,000 in a savings account? Are you going to take that $1,000 and maybe put $500 to paying off a credit card and the other $500 in a savings account? Yeah, when you budget every dollar that you make. You budget all of it. Don't leave
Hmm.
any left over. That doesn't mean you spend all of it. That means you assign it a place. Assign every dollar a place. Mm-hmm.
So someone gets paid, say let's say they got a commission check for $600 for the week.
Okay.
Um, where when you're talking assigning, so beforehand they've allocated, say, 200 $200 is really low for rent, but let's say $200
Right.
for rent,
Sure.
$100 for groceries, etc. So at the beginning of the month, that's what they're doing. They're assigning, okay, this is the fixed dollar
Yeah.
amount,
Yes.
and then going from there.
That's right. Yeah. Make sure you assign every dollar a place. Yeah.
Interesting. and
Hmm.
then allocate extra money that you're making to, okay, well, then this goes in the slush fund, this goes into
Right.
savings, what have you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Huh. Very interesting. Was there
That's
any?
when that's when you're taking control of your money.
Yeah.
That is a true budget, is when you're taking control of your money instead of wondering what happened to it. So that's why I say if there's money left over from your income to outgo utilities, car payment, gas, groceries, etc., and you're going to find that you have $500 or $600 left over at the end of the month, when the end of the month comes, assign that money somewhere.
Hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Makes sense. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's hard to. What do you? Because I know you've had this question because I've had this myself. But like, say you have that. Let's say you have $200 in savings.
Okay.
Why do the emergencies come up that deem that accessible? Because it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to allocate this X amount of dollars over here, and I'm not going to touch it. But
Okay.
every time there's something in the month where it's like, I got to access it because I need
Right.
XYZ. And it is, let's say it is a very important thing. It's like, I didn't make enough money this month and my car payment's due and I can't be late. So
Right.
now I'm touching my savings when I told myself that I wasn't going to touch it. So
Right.
what's kind of that conversation?
Well, that conversation would be, first of all, a savings is separate from an emergency fund. An emergency fund, if you don't have any money saved up, if you have nothing saved up, then you want $1,000 quick, quick, quick. Go through your basement, your garage, your attic, sell things that you haven't used in at least a year. And some people say, well, someday I might use it. Well, the someday hasn't happened in a year. So get rid of it, sell it, have a yard sale, do something, and get you $1,000 quick, and put that in emergency fund. Now, true to self, you need to have at least 4 to 6 months of living expenses for a true emergency fund, so that if you lose your job, you get laid off, maybe you were in an accident, and now things happen. And so what we don't want to happen is you have no money saved up, you drive down the road, your alternator goes out, and you need to replace your alternator. If you don't have any money saved up, what are you going to do? You're going to end up charging it, and now you've made a stressful situation even more stressful, because now you've got debt. So true to self, have an emergency fund and a savings account separate. So an emergency fund of $1,000 to begin with is okay, because if for some reason you end up with a flat tire, the tire can't be repaired, you have to replace the tire, you can access that emergency fund to buy a new tire, and then replenish it as you get paid. Replenish that emergency fund. Once you have $1,000 in the emergency fund, then I recommend setting up a separate account for a savings account. Okay. And hopefully you don't have to touch that, because the goal is to start building up some savings, et cetera, and demolishing debt. If you have credit card debt, you want to get rid of that and get rid of the credit cards, because you're just robbing your future, because you're paying interest on every time you make a payment, you're paying interest. So what you thought was going to be a good deal on the credit card is no longer a good deal, because now there's interest added to it. So,
How do
yeah.
you, I'm curious, let's say you have five credit cards and they all have X amount of dollars in balance and that interest is just chewing you up every month. You're not making any headway. What do you advise folks on doing with the situation like that, where they're just paying
I
sums?
Yeah. I've had some people say, well, what about a consolidation loan? And I don't personally like consolidation loans, because managing money and taking control of money is 80% behavior and only 20% head knowledge.
Hmm.
So that's powerful. I have to know some things about money, but I don't have to be that smart. It's behavior. So that's a good thing for me. But if I don't change my behavior, here's what happened. That couple that I coached that had 86 credit cards, 5 years before that, had credit cards and got a consolidation loan. They didn't change their ways, and they ended up with 86 credit cards and a consolidation loan payment. So the point of the matter is, if you can change your behavior, you can change your financial future. So I don't like consolidation loans for that particular reason. Credit cards, if you have 5 credit cards, do the debt snowball. Start with the smallest debt, pay off each debt, and still make all 5 minimum payments, but as you make extra money or have extra money, tackle that smallest credit card payment, pay it off. Once it's paid off, let's say the minimum payment on that card was $50 a month. Well, now you don't have that card, right? You're not going to spend that $50. You're going to add that $50 payment to the next credit card along with its minimum payment. So it's a debt snowball. So if that second credit card payment was only $50 a month and now the first credit card is gone, now you're going to pay $100 a month on that credit card until it's gone. Then you're going to take that $100 a month that you no longer have to pay and put it with the minimum payment to the third credit card. And this actually is like a psyche type thing. If you do that and you start getting rid of those credit cards, it does 2 things. It puts the win under your belt. You're motivated to do it. And secondly, because you did that with each credit card, you're not going to want to do it again. Whereas if you take a consolidation loan and you consolidate all 5 of those cards into one payment, chances are you're going to have a repeat of history. It will just be a matter of time. Yeah.
What do you advise folks on doing as far as obviously getting rid of the debt would be probably priority number one. But again, with like savings, right? They need to build that 1,000 and then they need to start building some kind of other buffer. What percentage of their income do you advise them allocating for that?
For savings?
Yeah, I mean, just say I got that $600 paycheck. Obviously, my dollars are allocated accordingly. But if there's, because I've heard anywhere from, just immediately take 30% out of your budget or whatever you're paying. Say like that cup of coffee or whatever. Well, that's $3 that I can put in savings instead. So just
Right.
curious.
If you have the income, then my recommendation would be 30% in savings. If you don't have the income, then first priority would be get that emergency fund. You get at least $1,000 in an emergency fund. And if you have debts, I'm not talking about necessarily a house payment, but if you have credit cards, you need to get rid of those credit cards. That would be the second priority, credit cards. And then thirdly would be your car payment. If you have the income, then 30% in savings each month.
Okay, that's a good
Yeah.
number. It's a
Yeah.
good number. I try to like think about that in my head. I'm like, okay, I made this and I got to put
Right.
30% of it away. And it's like, I don't, because I've read financial books and I'm like, always pay yourself first, pay that
Right.
first and then everything else comes second. But
Right.
that's not always as easy as it sounds. So,
Sure. Absolutely.
well, this
Oh.
has been very informative. I appreciate your time. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we wrap up this episode?
I would just like to add, if there's anyone listening that has debt and you feel hopeless, you don't have to be hopeless. There's hope for your situation. It doesn't matter how much debt you have. There is a way out of debt and there is a way to build wealth.
I love it. Yeah, just think long term, long
That's
game,
right.
and
Yes.
do the necessary steps. I For me, I know it's been a lack of discipline. You look
Yeah.
at your situation, and it does feel hopeless, and it's like it's easier just to whip out the credit card and go pay for that $3 at
Right.
coffee because it makes you feel better. But
Right.
it's just kind of like pouring salt in the wound, and it's
Right.
making it worse. So.
Right. Yeah.
Good words. All right. Before I let you go, tell me the one quote that is most inspiring to you and why.
Mm. Believe to achieve. I would have to say believe to achieve. You have to believe in yourself so that you can achieve your goals. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Karen, thank you so much for being on the show. Like I said, I was very excited to speak with you, and I feel like the listeners will gain a lot of value from this because I learned a lot. I'm going to go back through and take down some notes.
Awesome.
Um, we'll put links to all your information in the show notes as well. So links to your books on Amazon, as well as where people can find out more about you. And again, thank you so much for your time. And hopefully we'll keep this conversation rolling, and maybe I'll interview you down the road again.
That'd be great. Thanks for the opportunity. It was my pleasure.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again for being a listener and supporter of the Catalyst Creator Show. Hey, if you found value, please like, share, and comment below. Your valuable feedback and requests to hear from future guests would be appreciated. One last thing before I let you go, consider becoming a supporter of the show. I don't like ads, as I feel it subtracts from the quality of the show's content. You can find out more about becoming a supporter by following the links in the show notes. Again, thank you, and I look forward to hearing from you again. Take care.